Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. The Phillies get a nice series win out in Seattle, and they've been background noise because they're on the West Coast swing. They're about to play the Dodgers. Zach Wheeler returns, thankfully, because I can't deal with any bullpen games like we saw in that second half of the doubleheader on Sunday against the Mets. It was such a vibe killer, and it really is brutal, even though we saw Bailey falter, who, really isn't someone that you want to be relying on. You want to have your Nola, your Wheeler, your Ranger, your Eflin, your Kyle Gibson, and they did win a baseball game with Bailey. But anyway, look, the Sixers are the hot topic here. The Phillies are somewhat sliding underneath the radar, but they did have a good win on the road, taking 2 of 3. And say what you want about where the Mariners are right now. I don't care, because the Phillies are trying to get on a roll. The Phillies are trying to establish some life, and everything right now that you could take positive, I'm taking it and I'm storing it, and I'm seeing the number one takeaway being Rhys Hoskins. And this team could be completely different with a Rhys Hoskins who can rake and a Rhys Hoskins who could demolish the baseball. So clearly that's where our brain goes first. Not only was there a grand slam, and realistically, there should have been more than just the homers he put on display as well in those first couple of games against Seattle, if there wasn't such a dead ball issue. I'm watching exit velocity 100 plus, doesn't go out. I mean, Rhys Hoskins really should have more bombs than he does to this point. He's not the only player getting screwed. There's billions of MLB players out there that are getting the same issues that Rhys Hoskins does, but when you put the emphasis that this dude is struggling and swinging through pitches that are over the heart of the plate, or sometimes he's staring at pitches go right by him that's so damn drivable, and it's such a mistake, and it sits flat over the heart of the plate, and he doesn't do anything with it. When it gets that ugly, you need everything to scratch and crawl out in a positive way, and when there's balls that should be going out that aren't, it only makes the frustration boil even more. But right now, I mean, he's definitely filled with confidence as he's hitting home runs left and right in this series, and he hits a grand slam. So I've received calls all weekend long about the Phillies, and a lot of them bring up the fact that Rhys Hoskins sucks and Rhys Hoskins is a bum. It's kind of funny how things go full circle. Last year, I was more willing to have the conversation of restarting this franchise. Dave Dombrowski comes in here, and the way you could get some prospects is to trade someone like Rhys. Now that you made the moves that you did to bring in Schwarber and bring in Castellanos, it's hilarious to me that there are people out there that want to get rid of him and say he sucks. He's not a 180 hitter. He's not a 189 hitter. We've seen Rhys Hoskins long enough to know that there is going to be a barrage of homers. He will turn it around. Just give it time for him to kind of figure it out. And now you're seeing him really deliver, and it's game-changing when you have that extra piece added to your lineup. I did not love the second game where there was a ton of errors, and you could make the argument that wasn't the greatest day at the office for Rhys Hoskins over at first. You could also make the argument that umpires are stupid, umpires are dumb, umpires are having a really tough time right now, whether it's the whole situation with Madison Bumgarner, and you got people staring at his face, feeling his hands for sticky stuff with the idea. Like the way that the umpire in that situation handled it, he was trying to get underneath of his skin. He was trying to get Madison Bumgarner out of the game. I don't know where we are. Angel Hernandez, right? The whole debacle on Sunday Night Baseball where the entire baseball world saw how messy and bad it was. It is just a really hard time for umpires right now, and they're failing miserably. When there's an obvious call out at first base that you miss, and then the whole Joe Girardi gets ejected situation plays out. And then, of course, on Wednesday afternoon in this game where Seattle takes an early lead, a clear out at second when Gene Segura makes an outstanding tag, hits the toe. They actually review the play and still decide that there's not enough evidence, which, I mean, I don't know. Do you have eyeballs? You slow it down slow enough and you see it's clear. It's not even as if maybe it's a debate and maybe it's kind of, no. It is legitimately 1,000% obvious and clear. So don't tell me that we had to stay on the field with the call, because if you do not see what everybody else saw, which is the glove tag the shoe and the cleat before it hits second base, well, then you are a fool and you're not doing your job properly, which therefore you should be fired. And of course, that ends up becoming a run. And now you think, oh my Lord, here we go. Why does it always have to be this way? But luckily, Rhys Hoskins was hitting shots and hits a grand slam of all things. Just good at-bats before that with, you look at Bryce Harper, you look at Gene Segura. Gene Segura just gets some hits. There are some ugly things happening right now. Bryson Stott looks overmatched. He had an 0 for 4 day followed by a really bad day as well. He had 3 strikeouts in the finale of the series. Schwarber striking out left and right. We have to find a way to get Schwarber to be batting deeper in the lineup. Now, in theory, before the season began, we picked up Kyle Schwarber and said he could do it. It's not like he is a old school, legit, standard leadoff guy, but you thought, okay, he is capable of leading off, which you had no other option. You have no other real opportunities to slide somebody in there. So let's go with Schwarbs. All right, at this point, it's not working. You can see the difference when you look at the meat and the potatoes of the lineup. And I like Alec Boehm batting second, to be honest with you. If you could get Boehm 2, keep him there. You get Bryce Harper 3, Castellanos 4. Now with Rhys Hoskins hitting, maybe he slides into 5, Schwarber 6. The thing is then, now you have 2 righties in a row with Castellanos and Rhys. If you wanted to break it up, you could put Schwarber behind Castellanos, and then you have Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber. And then you could have Rhys Hoskins after that for Boehm starting it off, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty. How about that? The problem is, I don't know what you do leading off at that point. I mean, you could technically put in Odubel Herrera, even though I'm not the biggest fan in the world of that as a long-term option, but he could hold the fort down for a game or two whenever he gets his number called due to necessity. So I don't know what else you would do there, but it's clear striking out left or right. It's just not the way to go about things. Gene Segura, I mean, I know that's probably a name that maybe you can hope and pray could establish some sort of life up at the top of the batting order and see if you can figure something out in that department. But I'm not the biggest fan of Schwarbs at this point. You tried it. You gave it some chances, and it's clear that when he's batting deeper in this lineup, whether it's just because of his approach or the protection all around, and like I said, there's a lot of horses right in a row, bang, 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 bang. When the pitcher's on the mound and he recognizes he has to go through that, well, you know, it's painful, it's tough, it's brutal, and then at some point, you're going to make mistakes, and when you make mistakes, these guys are going to definitely make you pay. So just something to consider as a whole. I do want to touch on, too, about the situation that happened with the Mets before this series even began. Because when they had the explosion where they lost the game with the horrible 9th inning, and they went to Norwood and Knebel, and I really don't want to relive that whatsoever. But afterwards, there was a meeting held by Bryce Harper. And I just love the fact that after that horrible day occurred, they played Max Scherzer. And keep in mind, there were a couple days off due to the rain delay and games were getting postponed. There's 2 ways to think about that. Either it's a good thing because, you know, you can kind of just, instead of getting right back out there with so many emotional ties to such a disturbing loss, I don't want to say it's nice for it to digest, because the other side would be the best part about baseball is you play every day. So you can put the most recent loss behind you. If you were to win that following day, then it somewhat evaporates quickly because there's so many games to keep your mind on that you don't sulk in the negativity. With that said, that one was such a bad loss that I think having a couple of days to kind of regroup and reset and hit a bit of a refresh button, it could go a long way. And I love the fact that Bryce Harper holds a meeting, and then that following game when they finally got back on the diamond after the weather was able to hold up, they played Max Scherzer. He's going deep, and he's giving you RBI. You get a 2-0 lead all because of Bryce Harper. You end up winning the game 3-2. Now, unfortunately, because of the COVID protocols with Wheeler and Eflin, you're you're forced to go with a damn bullpen game with Christopher Sanchez. And, I mean, the recipe for disaster is basically written on the wall when that's the case. And it just sucked the life out of you when you knew that you were going to fail. And Pete Alonso in that second game of the doubleheader was absolutely crucifying you. The moral of the story of bringing up the Mets part, though, in that doubleheader sequence was what Bryce Harper did. And I just think that that's so important. And we questioned what type of vocal guy is he? He's a workhorse. He's a battler. He's always on the field giving you absolutely everything. Those are the intangibles that we never questioned. But what type of, hey, guys, rally around me, locker room, clubhouse, locker room vibes, vocal approach do we get out of Bryce Harper? And I thought that that was so massive. Not only did he say it, but then he backed it up big time by going yard off of Scherzer and bringing that level to it. And now you see them, they're starting to win a little bit of baseball games. So in game one, they crushed the Mariners 9-0. It wasn't even competition. Ranger Suarez gave you 7 strikeouts, which was awesome. Castellanos 3 hits. Segura had a homer. Rhys had a homer, a little back-to-back. Rhys Hoskins had 3 hits in that game. Stott, yeah, I might have mentioned Stott doing something poorly in game 2 of this series. It was game 1. He went 0 for 4, and Schwarber leadoff went 0 for 5. So that is, let's see, that is just awful. Game 2 was a 5-4 loss. You had 4 errors, and I just don't know what type of wins you get when you play that sloppy. I guess the big takeaway from that game was Joe Girardi showing life. We actually saw the manager go out there and scream his face off and get ejected from the game, which is what you needed. You needed this team to be looking at the manager that showed some sort of emotion. There have been too many times this year. And look, they're what? What are they? 11 and what? No, sorry. They're 14 and 17. So they're 31 games into the season. I bring up 11 because I was looking at the standings today, and there's so many teams right now in the NL East that are 14 and 17. The Braves, the Marlins, and the Phillies. You have the Mets taking it away right now, although there's a lot of baseball left, and then the Washington Nationals underneath of them. But I was looking at the AL East, looking at the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox. The Red Sox have 11 wins right now. They're 11 and 19, and they're an absolute joke. And Boston fans are having a horrendous time watching. I see them blowing up Twitter all the time. I somewhat laugh hysterically knowing how much pain they're going through. And look, I mean, who am I to judge? I'm watching the Sixers not even show up in a Game 5 on the road after tying up a series 2-2. And I haven't seen a damn playoff game for the Phillies since I was, what felt like 2 years old. So who am I to be judging right now? But anyway, 14 and 17, 31 games into the year. We've brought up many times where we thought that Joe Girardi should have lost his cool and showed some fight and had some attitude to him. You're not going to get kicked out, ejected 4 times out of 30 games and keep up that pace. 30 games, if you're getting kicked out 4 times after every 30, I mean, how many ejections is that a season? Now, with that said, I still need him to have his team back a bit more. And when Schwarber's getting thrown at by the Mets, when it eventually hits Alec Boehm, when Angel Hernandez is screwing everybody, I mean, I do need a more of a pulse for sure, but just to put it in perspective of how many times we're demanding him to get kicked out of a game, you know, there is something I don't want him to do it to the point where at some point, if you keep doing it, it loses its power. Now, I don't want to be hypocritical because I've called for him to stand up for some guys and to get out there, but I do think at the same time, if we're looking at him finally doing it and how many times we've been calling for it, one of these, I guess, if he was to do it after the second time, then maybe this time he wouldn't have got kicked out, if that made sense. You have to pick and choose your battles, if you will, but I guess the positive here is, finally, Joe, I realized that you were actually there. Sometimes I wonder, what are you doing? And then the broadcast is showing him, he's sitting in the dugout on his little chair, and he's looking at his binder, and you don't get anything out of him. We need a reaction because the team can definitely feel some buzz off of that when necessary. And at least there was something to it, and the team responded with winning the series and taking 2 out of 3. It's going to be hard to demand much out of this Dodger series. Here's a good thing. You got Zach Wheeler taking the ball for game one. So if there was anyone that you could be excited about to give you the best chance possible, if they're on their A game, well, then let's see if he can get something done here and if the Phillies can manage to steal game one to set yourself up for some success. It's clear, though, that while this team is frustrating and this team isn't the most exciting team to this point, I took a screenshot of Corey Seidman, and this was on May 11th, which is today, but it was at 10 a.m. before the final game of the series. The Phillies' offensive ranks, .416 slugging, which is first in the National League and second in all of Major League Baseball. A .731 OPS, which is second in the National League and third in Major League Baseball. And 23.3% line drives, which is first in the National League and third in baseball. The reason I'm bringing this up is to inform you all that they have great statistics when it comes to batting and when it comes to numbers, power numbers, and what they're doing at the dish. It's just not resulting in all the success that we would like for it to. And there's many of parts that you could look at this, right? All of the league is down. The ball is causing some issues for a lot of people, and there's a lot of that too. So it's not just, hey, the Phillies are raking and doing everything that they're supposed to when you win 9-0, but then there's also games where you're not scoring runs or your offense is only producing 1 run or 2 runs. I mean, at the end of the day, winning 9-0 or scoring 7 runs in a game, when you do win big and you explode and you get an awesome W and you win by a lot of runs and score a lot on the board, it plays a numbers game, obviously, and you kind of, it skews some of the numbers, if you will. So it doesn't tell the full story. There's a lot of different subtopics based off of that, which is where the league is, and they still had some devastating offensive nights that needed to be better, and we all claim that you just got to give them time to kind of work out of it. And it seems like Rhys Hoskins had some life today in this series, which is definitely desperately needed, but we got to plug away to get Schwarber in an identity that fits him best with this lineup. Castellanos gets hits all the time. It's great. He just missed a bomb right before Rhys Hoskins hit that homer. That thing carried to right field, and I'm like, oh, baby, here we go. Here's a homer. The Phils are going to take the lead, and it was caught at the wall. And then with a blink of an eye, Rhys Hoskins goes to left field and smashes one. So luckily, a teammate's had his back after something that I thought was a no-brainer. As soon as it barreled up and went to right field, I'm like, I started celebrating before I even saw the camera view cut to the ball flying in the air. Shame on me. I should know better with where we're at so far this season with the baseballs. So we got Rhys, we got Joe, we got a road win. Sometimes after you go through so many painful situations, getting away from home could be good. You played your rival. You had arguably one of the worst losses we've seen in regular season baseball history in quite some time. A flat-out disgrace and a huge lead just gets evaporated in the 9th, and it's so hard to emotionally turn the page from that. Getting away, going to the West Coast, somewhat hiding behind what the Sixers are doing could make you just breathe a little bit easier and step in that box, and the pressure's a bit different. And you could just tell if the intensity was at an 8 or a 9, well, maybe it's like a 6.5 or a 7 because there's other things distracting the fan base and distracting the storylines and distracting all the articles on Twitter because, well, what happened with Joel? What happened with these other things surrounding Philadelphia sports? And it just gives you a different mindset and a different approach, and we'll see what happens for this new series, though. And I was going to look up who is on the mound for the Dodgers for game one. Wait, why does it say, oh, that's Thursday. Oh, Thursday says Gibson and Clayton Kershaw. Wheeler versus Anderson. Anderson's 3-0 on the season with a 2.78 ERA, an 0.97 whip with 22 and 2/3 innings pitched, 22 strikeouts, walked 5, and has allowed 2 home runs. Oh, comedy. The Dodgers are lethal. You know who else is lethal? Alec Boehm. I got to give a lot of credit to this kid. There's going to be irritating moments in the field. Inevitable. Yup, it's going to happen. Kid hits. kid hits nonstop. And it is night and day from what we saw last season. And it's pretty miraculous. I knew he'd be better than last year, but this is crazy. You talk about multi-hit nights. He had a multi-hit night today. He had a multi-hit night in game 1 of this series. He had multi-hit nights in 2 of the Mets games. He played in 3 of those. In the Rangers game, he had 2 hits. I mean, so far in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, he's gotten at least a hit in 8 of those. And in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, they're multi-hit days. He's hitting 311 on the year. The last time I called him out for wanting more power, he hit a homer. So let's see if this is going to happen with me going, I would like more power from him. Please, Boom. And I like him in the 2 spot. I actually liked Castellanos in the 2 spot as well when he did that the other day due to some desperate times of trying to figure out something. I prefer him in that 4th spot, though. That's why they brought him in here to hit in the middle of the lineup. That's why when Dave Dombrowski and Joe Girardi and Nick Castellanos and they had the welcome press conference, he sat there and said, yeah, I want the middle of the lineup, Joe. And they all started laughing for a reason. All right, we can go to the phones, though. I would love to hear from you, 856-442-9805. Before we do, guys, we have a new partner here, and it's one that we've been wanting for a long time now. Freestone Farm CBD. It's my favorite CBD brand because they farm it themselves with all organic inputs, and they offer the highest quality genetics in their strains and extracts. I've tried a lot of different brands, but honestly, Freestone Farm CBD has been amazing for me. I personally like using it after workouts and before I go to bed. I've been sleeping insanely better at night. What's more exciting, our friends at Freestone Farms just unveiled an all-new strain menu with some awesome CBD at really reasonable prices. Just check out their tropical tasting Bayox that clocks in at 24.1% CBD. All of their premium hemp flower is grown on their Garden State farm with all organic inputs and IPM. Absolutely nothing synthetic from farm to jar. On top of that, you can use promo code BROADS for 20% off at checkout at FreestoneFarmCBD.com. The link is down below in the description. Let's go to the phones and take our first caller of the show. Hello, you are on Broads Media.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So, yesterday night was one of the most controversial games I've ever watched and seen on Twitter. And I just want to know, like, what you thought about Nola's performance.
Yeah, I thought Nola was good. I thought Nola was actually, I have it right here sitting in front of me, and so unfortunately I just kind of looked over it when we were going through all the games, but I don't think his stat line tells the full story, and trust me, I will be the first person to rip Aaron Nola when I get the chance, and you could talk about him leaking oil whenever he gets to a certain part of a game at times, but I think the Aaron Nola we've seen full package this year, you should be more optimistic about it than negative in the full body of work, and look, I'm the last person to say, well, I mean, who cares? Like, this is what you kept hearing, right? Well, it was a broken bat single, and they were dinky little hits. And normally I go, I don't care if it's dinky or if it's 100-mile-per-hour exit velocity. If it goes into an area that gets somebody on base and scores a run, it doesn't say on the box score at the end, well, it's just unfortunate and it's just unlucky. With that said, I think the excuse of the expected batting average goes too far with Aaron Nola. But when you look at that specific game and that one inning to kind of start things off a bit, I just don't know if the storyline is perfectly described while looking at his box score. I think that one game, there is more truth to that side of the argument, but when you sometimes we've taken that too far, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm a huge Nola fan, and I was just like thinking like, wow. And I was going on Twitter, and I saw a lot of people defending Nola, and I know a guy named Jack Fritz. He was like, no, the stat line doesn't show Nola. He's pitching really well. So,
and he did pitch very well, and I appreciate your call. He did pitch very well. I'm definitely harsh on Aaron Nola. I like Aaron Nola, but I mean, it's very fair to analyze what he's done to this point last season. He's been miserable more than he has been good for you. And I think that he's starting off this season in a very positive light. And you need that. I mean, you could tie that back up by having a number 2 and a constant guy behind Zach Wheeler that you could rely on more times than not. If you didn't have that out of Aaron Nola, the fact that Kyle Gibson would arguably be your most reliable piece after a Zach Wheeler is tough to have. Now, the way that your team was constructed is to have generated success from your bats, and you should be able to make up for the deficiencies of your pitching. And if you had average pitching and great offense, and elite numbers and driving the baseball to score a ton of runs, well, then you could live with it, but it's definitely an extra added bonus if we're getting some really strong, structured Aaron Nola. So, look, I think the expected batting average conversation of in years past went way too far to an extreme, but if you're specifically targeting into this Seattle series and looking at that game 2 night with the broken bats and the singles and the craziness involved in the wonkiness on how they were scoring some of their runs early, I think it's fair for that one scenario to point out that Aaron Nola was way greater than the numbers dictated, and it was good. It was a good day for Aaron Nola. So for me to take that route and for me to take that side, it tells you a lot when you know where I am with Aaron Nola to this point of his Philadelphia Phillies career. That's for damn sure. Let's continue this and go to Amadeo. What's going on, Amadeo?
This was the weirdest series I've experienced. Even though they won, it was just weird. Like, I think it was just yesterday with the umpires and all that stuff and all the weird wonky hits that Seattle is getting. I don't know why. And like all of the balls that died for the Phillies, it was just weird.
It was.
I don't know why. I just can't describe it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was awkward. It was strange. It definitely had a weird vibe to it. But guess what? When those situations pop up, you got to find a way to take 2 or 3. It would have been nice to sweep them. It's not like the Mariners are playing with the most confidence in the world right now. But you take 2 or 3, you feel good about yourself. You win a series on the road. Your offense, guys like Rhys that you've been desperately needing to turn it around, finds his groove. Just unfortunately, someone like Schwarber is going down a path that we can't have, especially out of your leadoff spot. But going into the Dodgers stadium and going to play one of the best teams in all of baseball, for you to take some confidence, hit the road, win a series before you enter that, especially based off of what happened against the New York Mets prior to Seattle, it's a good spot to be in.
Oh, exactly. And like going back to Rhys as well, there have been so many hits that he's had, even specifically during this series, where it's like a hard hit ball. It's up in the air for so long, and it just dies right at the – like, he's had so many of those this year where you think it's going to go 500 feet, and then it just dies. Like, specifically talking about yesterday, where he had a out that died right at the warning track where the ball was hit like over 106 miles an hour. The home run he hit yesterday was 95 miles an hour. How does that make sense?
Well, baseball. The baseball world and what they're doing with the baseballs right now, there's a lot of controversy for a reason. And that could have been a 2-home run night. And then we could have looked at this series and said, how many home runs did he have? Oh, yeah, what's that? You add a grand slam to that? Now, I did see some Phillies fans disappointed that, well, if you take away Rhys's grand slam, well, excuse me? Well, what do you do? You're taking away a grand slam? In what universe can you just, in your brain, say, yeah, but if that hit didn't happen, what do you mean if it didn't happen? What are we doing here? Well, if Zach Wheeler didn't have 10 strikeouts, why you're taking away 10 strikeouts? How are you taking away 10 strikeouts? Well, if Alec Boehm didn't have an error, well, how are we just taking away an error? Right? These are things that happen throughout a game that you can't just take away, because you would never in a billion years go the other direction, look at a Phillies loss and say, well, if Pete Alonso didn't hit the home run, the Phillies would have won. You would never in a million years. Look, the team is 14-17. They're a couple games under 500. And let's be realistic. They got a 4-game set that's going to be extremely tough. And I don't know what we're going to see. I have no idea what we're going to see. If you split, then I'd be the happiest man in the world. But just to look at where they are with their record right now to start this season off, they're disappointing. I'm with you. I get it. I'm not telling you you're supposed to be happy and be clapping your hands and fist pumping in front of your TV every single day based off of where the Phillies are. But you can't just downplay every series. They're going to win series. They're going to be better than 14 and 17. They're not going to keep a 14 and 17 pace together from now until the season is over. So every 31 games, they go 14 and 17. No, they're going to win series. They're just starting the season off with a really difficult 2-month stretch. So I'm playing the long-term game of the first 2 months. Keep your head above water. The problem is the Mets win, and the Mets win. I don't know if that's going to last forever. We'll figure that out in June, July, and August. I can't control that. That's out of my control. The only thing I can focus on is what the Phillies are doing, a wild card spot, making the playoffs. The Mets are going to do what the Mets are going to do. All right? If they end up being a team that's actually legit, and we always claim the Mets are the Mets, then have at it. They can have a bunch of fun, and they'll do whatever they do. But my goal is, okay, where are the Phillies, and are they going to find a way to make the postseason this year, considering we haven't seen a damn playoff game since I came out the womb, it feels. All right, with that, we're going to shut things down here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today.